When a respected principal and his family were thrown out of an upscale restaurant under the guise of a dress code, the city of Brookhaven saw more than a dinner ruined. They saw dignity denied. The manager, Todd Carver, hid prejudice behind polished manners, certain his position would shield him from consequences. But with one bold decision from Mayor Linda Harrison and a community's united stand, the family he tried to humiliate ended up hosting the city's most important event in their own backyard. Just wait until you hear how that single act of grace turned public shame into a triumph that redefined justice in the entire town. Saturday night at La Lumiere was meant to feel like perfection. Every table gleamed under the glow of chandeliers, and the air carried a melody of jazz that made even the clinking of glass sound elegant. Waiters moved with practiced grace, and the scent of rosemary and roasted lamb floated through the room. To dine there was to feel important, at least that was the promise. When Marcus Rivers stepped through the door with his wife Danielle and their 2 children, that promise shattered in quiet, invisible pieces. They had dressed with care. Marcus wore a dark navy blazer and polished shoes, Danielle a cream-colored dress and simple pearls. Their children, Leah and Evan, had ironed shirts and shy smiles. This was a celebration, a night to honor Danielle's promotion at the city's public health department. Marcus had made the reservation 2 weeks earlier, confirming twice by phone. As the hostess led them to a table by the window, he caught Danielle's eye and grinned. "Told you we'd get the best spot," he said. She laughed softly, a sound that warmed the table before the menus even arrived. Then, across the room, Todd Carver noticed them. The restaurant's manager was a man who prided himself on upholding the brand. He believed La Lumiere was a place for a certain kind of guest, people who fit neatly into his unspoken definition of sophistication. To him, the Rivers family didn't belong in that picture. He crossed the dining floor, his posture stiff and his expression polite but cool. Stopping at their table, he adjusted his tie before speaking. "Good evening," he said, his tone clipped. "I'm afraid I need to address a matter regarding our dress code." Marcus looked up, puzzled. "Dress code?" "Yes," Todd said, glancing quickly over Marcus's jacket and tie, as if looking for an invisible flaw. "Our policy requires formal attire, and unfortunately this doesn't quite meet our standards." Danielle blinked, unsure she'd heard right. "Excuse me? My husband is wearing a blazer. Our children are dressed better than most adults here." Todd's voice didn't change. "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone not in compliance." Marcus looked around. At the next table, a man in sneakers laughed over a glass of wine. A few seats away, a woman wore a floral sundress, casual, comfortable, and clearly allowed. "Is this about the dress code?" Marcus asked slowly. "Or something else?" Todd's smile tightened. "Sir, I'm asking you to leave." A stillness spread through the room. The waiter who'd been heading toward their table stopped mid-step. A couple near the bar turned to look, whispering. Danielle reached for her daughter's hand under the table. "Please," she said softly. "This is supposed to be a special night." Todd's answer was calm but cutting. "I'm sorry, ma'am." "Rules are rules." Marcus rose, pushing back his chair carefully, his movements deliberate. He wouldn't give anyone the satisfaction of seeing him lose control. His voice was low but steady. "You're making a mistake," he said. "And I think one day you'll realize that." Todd only gave a short nod. "I don't think so." The family gathered their things. Leah clutched her mother's hand, confused. Evan asked in a whisper, Did we do something wrong? Danielle didn't answer. She couldn't find the words. As they walked toward the exit, the music resumed, as if the scene had never happened. But not everyone went back to eating. A young woman near the bar, phone in hand, kept recording as the door closed behind the Rivers family. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. Marcus took a slow breath, straightened his shoulders, and opened the car door for his wife. Inside, the children were silent. The glow from the restaurant window spilled faintly across the parking lot, a reminder of the warmth they'd been denied. That night, Danielle posted a message on social media. "We were asked to leave La Lumière tonight. They said it was the dress code. We saw who they served after us. My children saw it too." The video, uploaded by the woman at the bar, appeared a few hours later. It showed the family rising from their seats, Todd's tight smile, and the way everyone else pretended not to see. By morning, it had spread across every feed, every group chat in Brookhaven. A simple clip, 30 seconds long, of quiet humiliation, and behind every replay a rising wave of anger. By Sunday morning, the video was everywhere. It had over 2 million views and was still climbing. The caption, simple but incendiary, burned through screens like wildfire. "Restaurant kicks out black family for dress code, while white diners in jeans are served champagne." Danielle had barely slept, but the bright morning light coming through the kitchen window felt harsh on her skin. She hadn't wanted to make a scene, not at first. She wanted to shield the kids from it all. But now, the events of the previous night replayed on every screen, and the comment sections were ruthless. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, each notification a reminder of the hurt. Her first instinct was to turn it off, but it was too late. She couldn't escape the world watching her family being humiliated. Leah was the first to speak up. "Why did they do that to us, Mom?" Her daughter's voice was so small, so full of confusion. Danielle choked back the rising lump in her throat. "Some people are just afraid of what they don't understand," she answered, knowing the words were hollow. The hurt on her daughter's face was something she couldn't take away. Marcus, too, tried to keep his composure, but the weight of the situation was unbearable. He paced the kitchen, trying to make sense of it. His phone was vibrating non-stop, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. The words on the other end felt like noise. Some of the calls were from colleagues, offering their support, but others felt like passive attempts to dismiss it. "You can't fight it, Marcus," his brother had said, his voice tinged with frustration. "They always win. Just let it go." But Marcus couldn't just let it go. How could he? His children had witnessed their father being treated like a criminal in a place that should have been a celebration. For years he had worked tirelessly for this community, been a mentor to countless students, but none of that seemed to matter. The words of his brother lingered in his mind. They always win. He could feel the anger simmering beneath his skin. He refused to let his children think that this was just something they had to accept. They had seen the truth that, in some places, even wearing your best clothes wasn't enough to be treated with dignity. Meanwhile, La Lumière didn't even flinch. A spokesperson for the restaurant issued a statement that morning, an attempt at damage control. "Dress code enforcement was unrelated to race," it read, with the same cold precision as the manager's original words. "We ask all our guests to respect our policy." The words hit like a slap. Unrelated to race? It was a statement that only fanned the flames. Local activists rallied quickly, demanding accountability. The hashtag number sign Justice for the Rivers family was trending, and protests outside La Lumière began to form. The restaurant's once glowing reviews tanked, replaced by angry messages and one-star ratings. The truth was out, and people weren't willing to ignore it. But Todd Carver, ever confident in his position, laughed it off. He told reporters, "People overreact. This will blow over. Trust me." His words dripped with a mixture of arrogance and ignorance. He seemed to believe his connections, his power, would shield him from the storm brewing in the city. But the more he spoke, the more people saw his true colors, colors that didn't belong in a city that prided itself on progress. The pain, however, continued to seep into every part of Marcus's life. He couldn't stop thinking about the eyes of his children. How could he explain to them that people could treat them this way because of their skin? How could he teach them that respect and fairness were universal values when, in the face of injustice, those principles were disregarded so casually? But then the phone rang. It was the mayor of Brookhaven, Linda Harrison. Marcus had met her once before at a school event where she had spoken of unity and progress in the community. But he never imagined that a call from her would come under these circumstances. He picked up the phone, the weight of the moment pressing on his chest. "Marcus," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'm sorry you and your family are going through this. But I need you to know something. It's time for things to change." For the first time since the eviction, Marcus felt a flicker of something other than pain. It wasn't much, just a spark. But in that moment he knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Mayor Linda Harrison was not a woman easily shaken. In her 50-something years, she had weathered budget crises, protests, and political storms with steady composure. But when she watched the clip of the Rivers family being turned away from La Lumière, something inside her hardened. She remembered Marcus Rivers well. His school had been a cornerstone of Brookhaven's struggling district, a rare place where hope still felt possible. She reached out immediately. The following afternoon, she invited Marcus, Danielle, and their children to City Hall. No reporters, no microphones, just a private meeting in her wood-paneled office overlooking the square. The family looked exhausted but composed, holding themselves with quiet dignity. "Marcus," she began gently, "this isn't just about one dinner or one restaurant. This is about what we allow to stand in our city." Marcus's hands rested on the table. His shoulders carried days of tension, but his voice was steady. "I'm not looking for revenge, Mayor. I just want my children to grow up knowing this isn't the way the world is supposed to be." Linda leaned forward, her expression softening. "Then let's show them what normal should look like." That single sentence became the spark for something greater. A week later, La Lumière was buzzing with anticipation. The restaurant was scheduled to host the Brookhaven Mayor's Gala, the city's most glamorous annual event. A night where local leaders, business owners, and media figures gathered under chandeliers to celebrate civic achievement. For La Lumière, it was the perfect opportunity to cleanse its image and reclaim prestige after a week of bad press. Manager Todd Carver moved briskly through the dining room, inspecting every polished glass and folded napkin. He imagined the news coverage that would follow, the pictures of smiling guests under his chandeliers. Redemption, he thought, was finally within reach. But 1 hour before the first guests were due to arrive, his phone rang. The caller ID read, "Mayor's Office." He answered, his tone rehearsed and polite. "Todd Carver speaking." A calm voice on the other end said simply, "The venue has been changed. The mayor will no longer be attending La Lumière." For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. Changed? To where? The line went silent, then disconnected. Within minutes, confusion rippled through the restaurant. Waiters whispered, guests began calling for updates, and reporters waiting outside checked their notifications in disbelief. The headline hit social media first. "Mayor's Gala relocates from La Lumière. Sources cite message of unity." While La Lumière's tables sat empty, across town a very different scene unfolded. Under a soft evening sky, the Rivers family's backyard had been transformed. String lights were draped between old oak trees, casting a warm glow over rows of folding tables covered with white linens. The air was rich with the scent of food prepared by local black-owned restaurants: barbecue, baked bread, roasted vegetables, sweet desserts made by hand. Neighbors, business owners, teachers, and community leaders filled the yard, dressed not in luxury attire, but in joy and pride. Marcus stood near the porch, stunned as volunteers arranged chairs and guests laughed together. "I don't even know what to say," he whispered to Danielle, who smiled through tears. "Say welcome," she said softly. Cameras arrived soon after, broadcasting the sight of hundreds gathered not in a ballroom, but in a backyard. Mayor Harrison stepped forward to the small stage set up beneath the lights. When she spoke, her voice carried both warmth and conviction. "When a family is turned away from a table because of the color of their skin," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd, "it's not just bad manners, it's a moral failure." She paused, letting the silence hold. "So, tonight, the city of Brookhaven dines where dignity was denied. We gather not for formality, but for fairness. We celebrate not in luxury, but in unity." Applause broke out, swelling until it filled the street. Neighbors who had never spoken before shared tables. Children played near the porch. Laughter replaced the sting of humiliation. As the evening wore on, Marcus looked around, at his wife, his children, the mayor, and the crowd that had chosen to stand with them. He realized something profound. The night that had begun in pain was ending in purpose. Hope, it seemed, didn't need chandeliers to shine. It only needed people brave enough to light their own. The story that began as a quiet injustice in a small city didn't stay quiet for long. Within days, Brookhaven found itself at the center of a national conversation. Major networks, CNN, The Washington Post, Good Morning America, all ran the headline that had already captured millions of hearts. Family turned away from restaurant hosts, the city's gala in their backyard. What had started as humiliation became a movement. Images from that night: Mayor Harrison laughing under string lights, neighbors sharing food across folding tables, and the Rivers family standing arm in arm, spread faster than anyone expected. There was something magnetic about it, the story of grace meeting defiance, of hurt transformed into unity. Celebrities shared it on social media, adding words like courage, leadership, and hope. A well-known musician donated funds to expand Marcus's school library. An actor pledged a scholarship for students in Brookhaven. Donations poured in, not as pity, but as a collective thank you to a family that refused to bow their heads. Meanwhile, La Lumière became a symbol of what not to be. Its reservations vanished almost overnight. Corporate sponsors withdrew from partnerships. Within a week, its once glossy reputation dulled to silence. The investors, sensing the tide had turned, pulled their funding. Soon after, Todd Carver stepped down. The official reason listed was personal matters, but everyone in Brookhaven knew the truth. Arrogance had finally met accountability. For Marcus, though, the public triumph was never the goal. While the world debated and celebrated, he focused on the smaller, quieter moments, the kind that really mattered. Each morning, he still rose early to greet students at his school's entrance, shaking hands and asking about homework, just as he always had. The difference now was that when parents saw him, they didn't just see a principal. They saw a symbol of resilience. Letters began arriving at his office in bundles. Some came from parents who'd faced their own moments of injustice, others from teachers who said they found courage in how he had carried himself. One letter, written in careful penmanship by a teenager from another state, said, "You showed me how to stand tall without shouting." "Thank you for that." Marcus read each one, humbled and a little overwhelmed. But the real victory, the one that mattered most, came quietly one evening at home. He was sitting at the kitchen table, helping Leah with her math homework. The house was peaceful, the kind of peace that feels earned. Outside, the faint glow of the old string lights from the Gala still shimmered in the yard, swaying gently in the breeze. Leah paused, tapping her pencil. "Dad," she said suddenly, "remember when they made us leave that restaurant?" Marcus looked up, meeting her curious eyes. "Yeah," he said softly. She smiled, an honest, warm smile that carried no trace of hurt anymore. "Now everyone wants to come to our house." For a moment, Marcus couldn't speak. The words hit him harder than any headline, any donation, any praise. They were simple, but they carried everything: the pain, the pride, the full circle of it all. He let out a soft laugh, shaking his head. "Yeah," he murmured, a grin tugging at his lips. "Guess the table turned, huh?" Leah giggled, returning to her homework. Danielle, standing by the counter, caught Marcus's eye and smiled knowingly. The kind of smile that said, "This is what healing looks like." Outside, the last hints of sunset glowed against the sky, and the string lights twinkled faintly, remnants of a night when the city's heart had come alive in their backyard. What had once been a space of quiet family dinners had become a symbol of something much larger: dignity reclaimed and a community reborn. In the weeks that followed, Brookhaven began to change in subtle but powerful ways. Local restaurants reviewed their dress codes, rewriting vague policies that had long gone unquestioned. Some owners hung signs by their entrances that read, "All are welcome here." It wasn't government mandate, it was conscience. The Rivers family hadn't just exposed a wrong, they had inspired a right. They showed that grace could be stronger than anger, that unity could outshine shame, and that sometimes the most powerful protest wasn't loud, it was kind. In the end, the lights in their backyard stayed up, not as decoration, but as a reminder. Dignity, once defended, doesn't fade. It lingers, glowing softly against the dark, waiting for the next person who needs to find their own light.